Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, today we're going to get back to work on that hood for that 1950 Chevy truck, and we're going to be color sanding and polishing today. Now, I'm not going to show a lot of sanding and polishing, but what we're going to do is go over some of the things, why we do what we do, and what we need to do to be careful not to cause more problems for ourselves by being impatient. So we're going to take a quick tour here in a second and look at all the defects in the clear. We got a bug over here, we've got some dirt and some other stuff or nubbins. So we're going to take a look at those, then we're going to do some sanding, and then we're going to look at when we need to stop sanding and when we need to start polishing. And then a few other tips and tricks I've learned over the years not to shoot yourself in the foot and make it harder on yourself. So let's jump in here, take a look at how this thing turned out, how it looks now a week later after I sprayed it, and then we'll get into doing some sanding. Okay, let's take a quick look at the hood. Now I had to clean it up. I've been rolling it outside every day. I'm working on other projects and letting it cook out in the sun. It's been a week or so and the clear is good and hard. This stuff in the summertime, I will actually start color sanding it the next day or the day after that. It's ready to go. Now it's not hard all the way, but it's ready to be sanded. So it's something to remember. You kind of have to learn what clear you're using and how it wants to be treated. So when this was done, there was virtually no orange peel on top because it was swollen. There was solvent in it still, and it was all swollen up, and then the solvent leaves all, over the curing process, and then the clear shrinks. Well, when it shrinks, then it starts leaving the orange peel behind because you're spraying tiny droplets of clear, and they kind of clump together, and they make those little tiny hills and valleys. It's just the nature of the game. That's why we color sand. We're going to sand all those high spots off down to the low spots, and then we're going to polish our sand scratches out and make it super shiny and super smooth. So let's take a quick tour of what we've got going on today. So if you guys remember, there was a bug, and this bug landed in the third coat after I'd already applied the third coat. Now, if you get a bug or hair or something land in your clear, let's say on the first or second coat, you can reach in there with some tweezers or forceps or something and pluck that out. And I encourage you to do that. Don't put more clear over the top of that thing. You need to get it out because you're just going to encase it in layers of clear and you can't get it out then. You can't sand it out, you can't polish it out. So reach in there and get it out. Now remember, your base coat is nice and hard, so you can actually reach in there and get that out, get the bug or hair or whatever it is, lift it out of there. Now it's going to leave an imperfection. You put another little quick coat of clear over the top and it'll build over the top, and then later you're going to see it when it's done, but you can sand it smooth and then polish it and it'll be fine. It's way better than having a bug or hair or something encased in the clear and you can see it later. So always keep some tiny tweezers and maybe a little pair of forceps in the shop with you when you're spraying. So that bug, we're going to sand that out today, and if I can get some angles on here, you guys can see. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's some orange peel, and I'll tell you what, after I put the runs on the other side, I was a little gun shy. It was cold in the shop and I was afraid of putting a run in this thing, and the sides actually are more orange peely than the top. The top's flat and where's it going to run to, right? But on these sides right here, they are a little bit more orange peely than I should. After all these years of painting, I should be able to lay it down smoother than that. But it's not the end of the world. We're going to color sand it. It is flat. It's just not as flat as it should be, in my opinion. So we can try to see some of the dirt and stuff over here. There's a couple right here, and there's one right there. Let's see if I get the light just right so you guys can see those. So we're going to sand on all those, and I want to show you them right now. And then when we sand them, then we're going to take a look at them. And when you want to stop, how far do you want to go? If you want perfection, you got to go all the way. So I'm going to show these right here, and then we're going to come back to those later and take a look at them. We'll take a look at the bug, and then we'll see how they look after they're completely sanded. Okay, before we get started, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be sanding with, or what you should be considering to sand with. So you shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't sand with any grit by hand coarser than 1500 grit. Just buy plenty of it and keep switching to fresh sandpaper. I've seen guys sand with 800 grit, and I've done it when I'm getting out a run. I'll use the putty trick, the glazing putty trick, and I'll have a little heavier grit sandpaper, but I'm super careful. And then I just knock the tops off with it, because that heavier grit will put some serious sand scratches in your clear, and they're really hard to get out. So I'm more being patient and sanding with 1500. And actually, I will only sand to 1500. You can sand to 3000, you can sand to 5000 if you want. If that's what you want to do, it's fine. It's going to make your polishing that much easier. You sand it to 5000 grit, you barely just wave the polisher over and it's going to start looking shiny, you know, and ready to go. So it's just how much effort you want to put into it. So I have some blocks here, and I've got my DA disc. So you want to use like a rigid block when you're trying to get out a run, or one of these nubbins or something. You'll see me do that here in a bit. So we want it to kind of, you know, right on top of that piece of dirt or nubbin or whatever, and kind of file it down, right? If you use something flexible, it's kind of bend over the top of it, and you're going to end up sanding on both sides as well as that, and then it's not going to be as productive. So we're going to go around and attack all the little bad spots first, then we're going to sand the whole thing to get the, you know, the orange peel and unevenness out, so we can move over to polishing. So this is old school block. You guys may have seen these. These have been around forever, you know, and it's kind of semi-rigid, you know, it's flexible. Then we have the Dura block right here. You can wet sand with these. It's more flexible, you know, to get on big flat areas like, you know, out here on the hood. And then, of course, my old standby is my wet sanding pad right here. I need to get a new one. This one's starting to degrade, I think. I can see some cracks in it. I've used this thing to death. So I've also got my DA disc here. Now, I will probably get out the DA and sand this with the DA on the top flat parts right here, just to speed it up. I'm not going to show you much of that stuff. But this is the Hook It 2 system. I've talked about it before. It's got the intermediate pad that's very flexible. It's Velcro, and I will be using 1200 grit on that. Now, when you use a machine, it lessens the grit. So if I use 1200 on that, it's going to be closer to 1500 when I'm done. Maybe even finer than that. The machine makes the grit finer instead of by hand sanding. So the hard plastic blocks right here, those are going to be used to work out troubled areas and trying to flatten out something. The rest is just trying to smooth out the clear so we can polish it. So let's jump in and get to work on one of these. Let's start with that bug over there and see if we can get that dude sanded down, and then we'll move over to some of these little nubbins and other debris in the clear. And then we'll start getting some big parts of this thing sanded and hopefully get over to polish. Okay, so here's Mr. Bug right here. And I've already run my thumbnail over him. He's sitting pretty proud. So we're gonna use a little tiny block and see if we can't sand him out pretty quick here. He's already looking pretty good right there. So now you can see where it's sticking up in the middle, and then sanded around the perimeter, and then a low spot. And that will happen when you have a nubbin, a piece of dirt, a bug, anything. It'll actually create like a crater. I think the clear wets out and pushes itself away from the object. So you have to sand farther to get all that smoothed out. So this is a fresh piece of 1500. So now you can see that it's flattening out, but the halo right there is still there. So we're gonna have to keep sanding. And I'll tell you guys, if you sand and then you're not getting anywhere, almost like it's a pit, then what you need to do is stop, clean the area really well, finish all your sanding, and then you can mix up a little tiny baby batch of clear, very, very tiny, in a little plastic cup or something, and then take a, whatever it takes, like a toothpick or something, and dab clear in there and let it set a few days, and then sand that little droplet off, and that'll take care of that. So you don't have to necessarily always sand them down all the way down. You can refill that clear area. You'll never see it. Okay, so we're getting there. You can see all the orange peel around, it's pretty much gone, but the bug remains. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand all this. I'm not gonna bore you, but I'll look at the clock and I'll let you know exactly how long it took me to sand this out. Okay guys, it's been about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I think I pretty much got it here. I didn't mention the squeegee when we were talking about what you should be using. Make sure you get nice plastic squeegee like this. Really helps you see what's going on. Get that blood dry off there. Now I didn't move the camera, and you can tell it's gone. And I know there's plenty of clear on there. I know this clear, it's a pretty heavy build clear. Some clears are very low build. You'll see that on production cars. The clears are very thin. But that's the way those robots spray them, but that's the way they get them to lay down and look so good. They don't polish those cars, they just deliver them. So that's how it looks. But this clear happens to be a pretty heavy build clear. I like it, and it gives me a lot of clear to sand, so I wasn't worried about going through it in the least. So that bug is gone. He's just nothing but sanding debris. Now, let's move over to a couple of those nubbins and some of that other stuff on that other spot, and we'll take a look at those, and those should go even faster to sand out. Okay, I got you zoomed in here about as tight as I can. I've got it focused in as best I can, so you can see we've got one right here and one right here. Now this is the top of the hood. Just before it starts rolling over. And you can see if you look at the LED tubes in the ceiling there, look how fuzzy they look. Now when I first finished spraying, they looked like just like a mirror. You could see the outline of them very clearly. So we're gonna come back and show this spot, the exact spot again later when we're done sanding and polishing, and see what that light looks like after you're done polishing. So you can see, if you guys look, you see the little orange peel, the little imperfections in there? Now for most people that's nothing. You know, you put this thing out in the sun and it looks like glass. But underneath these lights you can see everything. So we're gonna go ahead and sand these two out real quick and see how quick it goes. We're just going to use the same piece of sandpaper we used a moment ago and just kind of blast through these two right here. Now when you first start sanding on them, you can kind of feel the nubbin on the top, and what you want to do as soon as you feel that kind of go away, you need to wipe that sanding debris away, because if that was a speck of dirt or something, then you're going to end up dragging that little piece of dirt around with you. So when you first knock off whatever it is, if it's a bug or a hair or a leaf, I don't care what it is, when you first knock it off, you need to kind of wipe the area to get whatever that debris was out of there, so you don't end up just dragging it around. So let's just stop real quick right here. Now you guys saw how long I was sanded. I mean, that was, I don't know, seconds, maybe 20 seconds. Get that to dry up. Okay, so the one right here is totally gone, just in seconds, right? And then that one is almost gone. So let's hit this all in real time. Now I want you guys to understand that you know about how long it takes to do this stuff. I don't want you to get discouraged if you're having to try to color sand a whole car or a huge 49 panel, right? I want you to know that if you just go through and get the big stuff, the big mistakes or whatever, and then you can go through and sand large areas and it goes really quick. Because like I said, you do a great job of color sanding, your polish job is going to come out so much nicer and it's going to go so fast. Because really, if you think about it, with sandpaper in your hand, you can control a lot of stuff, right? With that buffing wheel, the polisher in your hand, it's a little scary. You could burn the paint, you could bang into something, you could ruin it, right? But when you're sanding, you can control it really easily. So the smoother and nicer you get, the less you're going to end up messing around with that polishing wheel trying to fix something. So basically, they're both gone. And that was, I don't know how long that was, a minute and a half. So just like that, and I'm going to go through and get all of them. I'm going to do each and every one, and there's no orange peel in that at all. So this clear is sanding really nice today. So I'm going to go through and get all these other little nubbins and all this other stuff around here, and then we're going to start doing some large sanding. Okay, I started using the DA and did about, 10 minutes on this area right here. and it's looking really good. It's sanding nicely. It's no big deal. It's just a matter of time to get it, the way you want it. So how far do you go? How far should you sand? Should you sand till everything's perfect? Sure, if you want to. No, you don't have to. Now, if you look at this, it looks pretty good. I mean, you don't see any orange peel in there, right? There's a little bit up there where I hadn't sanded much. But when you start looking at angles, you can see the shininess inside those little areas, right? So I can still see it. And that's really, if you want to sand all that out, just spend the extra time to do it. Now, if it's just a quickie and you don't really care that much, you just want to knock some of the bad spots out of it, give it a quick sand and polish, that's fine. You don't even have to polish the car if you don't want. But this kind of stuff is what makes it's a make or break kind of a deal. And that's why I'm talking about why you're sanding. You want to sand all this out. You don't want to try to polish it out. That polishing wheel will follow every undulation. It's not going to bridge it. So you need to get all this sanded out so when you go to polish it looks really good. So I need to keep going on this. And there's a couple of little nubbins I missed over. There's one right here. We got one right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. There it is right there. See it right there? Now, you see how it's kind of a upside down horseshoe? That's because the clear gravity does take over. It hit that little nubbin on the next coat and it kind of draped around it. Now the clear did pull a little bit. I mean, unfortunately we can't defy gravity when we're spraying. If we could, that'd be awesome, but we can't. So I'm gonna keep sanding on this. Now I could polish it right now. I'm telling you, it'd look great. I mean, it looked fantastic, but I'm gonna keep going. Okay, we're all done with the passenger side of the hood. Now, I've sanded this about as far, actually a little bit farther than I sanded the rest of the truck to polish. So it's going to look a little bit better than the rest of the truck, and it's really kind of the showpiece anyways. It's right on top. You look over the hood all day when you're driving. So is it perfect? No. Could I keep sanding? Absolutely. There's plenty of clear on here. I could sand this thing to perfection. But that wasn't the deal on this truck. It's supposed to be a driver. Obviously, it's going to be a super nice driver. But all in all, there's a few little shiners on here. I call them shiners, where I can see there's a little nubbin with a little circle of shininess around it, like I showed you earlier. Now, when we polish those, they're going to disappear because everything's going to be shiny. And then I sanded, I did the whole thing with the DA as much as I could reach. Obviously, you don't want to try to get down in any of these, but I did most of that with the DA. So it saves my tendonitis, but then I went back by hand with 1500 grit and I sanded the whole thing over again. Now over here, I stayed away from that edge a little bit. We're gonna polish right up to it. The molding kind of sits over that. And this edge here, I tend to stay away from edges a little bit. You gotta polish away, don't polish towards the edge, but you polish away. And if it's not polishing out right, I can always sand it later. And then just around here, I did real quick. That's where the emblem goes, and then all the way around. So all in all, I think it looks really good, and it's ready for polish. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started on the driver's side, but it is lunchtime. So I'm going to go eat some lunch, take a break, recharge my sanding batteries so I don't start cutting corners on this side. And then once we get that done, we're going to start talking about polish. Okay, got both halves done. Looking pretty good. I think I've got 3 hours into sanding, so that's not bad. Probably less, maybe a little bit less, but let's just say 3 hours. You can see how shiny the hood is even at 1500 grit. Like I said earlier, if you want to go to 3000, 5000 even, I think 5000 is a waste of your effort, but if you want to go to 3000, that's certainly going to make your polishing that much easier. But this is ready to polish. So let's move over to the bench and talk about my new polisher I just picked up. I smoked the other one, the old Harbor Freight one, so I got a new one off Amazon. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, here's the polisher I've been using, and I thought I just picked it up, but turns out I've had it for over 9 months now. So I've put a little bit of polishing wear on it, not a lot. I smoked my Harbor Freight one when I was doing the cab, when I was polishing the cab. So I had to get this one fairly quickly, and I picked it up, and I like the features of it. Number one, it's lightweight. It only weighs 6.3 pounds. It's like 12 amp, I think. So it's got some beans to it. It'll turn a bigger polishing pad. It's variable speed, and one of the things I like most about it, it's soft start. So when you pull the trigger, Even if you set it 6, you pull the trigger and it starts off slow, and then it speeds up to 6. So that way you don't fling compound all over the place. So, and it's small in diameter. I can put my hand around it if I needed to. And this handle right here, guys, if you get a polisher, you need to make sure that it has this style of handle on it. Not just the one that sticks out the side. You need to have the one, because you're going to be turning this thing in all different ways. You need to be able to grip it in different spots. So it's worked pretty good so far. I finished the cab with it. You guys saw me polishing underneath the hood with it. I've done some other polishing with it, so it's worked out well. So in the box, you get this, you get the handle. It's got a super long cord on it. I think this cord is 6 or 8 feet long, so that's really handy. And in the box, it comes with a bunch of polishing foam pads. This would be like for number 1 for cutting, and then it goes down to super fine, and then, you know, for like putting wax on. Now these aren't going to get a lot of work done for you. Now I have used them. You saw me using them underneath the hood. But what I really like to use are the big 8-inch pads. Now, this one, see how it wraps around the corner here? Now, that protects the edge of the Velcro backing plate here from hitting your clear. So you got to try really hard to get that down and to touch clear with it, right? So that's what I like, because you don't want to make a mistake and you're like, oh my goodness, now what do I do? So this is the one I like to use, and this polisher has been able to run it really good. It does get warm, don't get me wrong, but they'll all get warm. I mean, my Harbor Freight ones got so warm, you know, they start smoking. So, but this will put a pretty good load on it, but that's what you want, because you're trying to polish that clear. So this thing works out well. $69, I think I only paid $59 for it, or maybe less than that, and that was 9 months ago or more. So the price has gone up on it, like everything. But I think it's a pretty good deal. So if you guys are looking for a polisher, you're not sure which one to get, I'm going to put the link in the description. I don't get any money for any of this, but I found this and I thought, well, you know, it works pretty good. There's a ton of them out there. Just look for how much it weighs, what kind of features it has, how many amps it is, because if it's too low amps, you're going to smoke the thing using a big old 8-inch pad like this, okay? So just watch all that, and I'm sure you'll pick up a nice one. This one, it's worked good so far, so we're going to put to work on the hood and see how it turns out. Okay, we're going to start off with the red, and that's a heavy cut right here, you can see. And these happen to be from TCP Global. You can find off-brand ones. You can find them at car swap meets. You can, you know, anywhere. You just need to figure out how fine the foam is. And usually the coarser the foam, the denser it is, the heavier cut it is, and then the finer it is, it's for finer finishes. So this will go on. We're going to be using 3M's Perfect EX-AC again, and this is number 1. So let's jump over to the hood. I've got it clean. All the sandy debris is being completely washed off, which is very important. And we're going to go ahead and get started on that one small spot where I was showing you the lights before. And we'll polish that area right there and take a look at it with just the number 1. And then I'm going to go around and do some other polishing. Maybe we'll hit that spot where the bug was, and then I'll just jump ahead and get all the number 1 done, and then we'll switch over to number 2. Okay, I got everything clean like I mentioned, and I dampened the wheel, and then I spun it out so it's just damp, so the compound doesn't just get in there and dry on your pad. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm pretty sure this is the exact area I had you focused in on before. We're just going to work this little square right here. Just like usual, we try to stay in a small area to make sure that we don't get wandered off and waste all our compound, because it will dry on you, especially in the summertime, so we want to keep it fresh. Start off slow. Speed up a little bit. Lighten up the pressure. And there are the lights again. So let me change your angle so you guys are exactly, I think it was the same, about like that. Okay, so I need to polish back here a little bit more so we get all of the lights. So let me get that done, and then we're just going to wipe this off and see how it is with number 1, and then we're going to jump over and check that bug area. But when you're polishing, you need to always remember you are removing clear. So if your pad starts pulling and you can feel it's really trying to tug, then you really need to either, you don't have enough compound on there, you let it get too dry, you warmed up the area too much and it dried everything out, or you've been polishing a while and the pad is full of clear and debris, so you need to take it off. That's why I love using these foam ones. Take it off, get it over to a bucket or a garden hose and rinse that thing out real good, spin it out again, and then get back to polishing. You are removing material with this. You're not just making it shiny, because you got to get some clear off to get all those sand scratches out. So remember, clean your pads frequently if they start grabbing on you, not working as well. So let's finish this up real quick. Okay, so always make sure you have 2 towels in the shop when you're polishing. One is for the first, number 1 step, and then the other towel is for number 2 step. Don't reuse the same towel. You always want to make sure you have clean towels in the shop. Okay, so you can see the lights there and they look pretty good. This is just the first step. I see some sand scratches out here on the edge because I was really just focusing on this area right here. So I'll have to focus on that, make sure I get all the sand scratches out. But it's looking really good. The lights are more defined than they were when before we started sanding. I'll put a picture up right now. And so you can see that it's a little duller and it's not quite as defined. So we're going to go ahead and check this out. I'm going to go ahead and polish this right here, up here, and all the way back here so I don't have to come back. And then we're going to jump over and work on the bug area. We'll see how that came out. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the hood. And then we'll bring back and we'll take a look at it. And then we'll jump over to number 2 step. Okay, this is, I'm not exactly sure where the bug was, but he was right around in this area. So I'm going to zoom you in right there. We'll go ahead and get that polished and see how it looks. We got our troubled areas kind of busted out with the number 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish with the number 1, the whole hood. And then I'll bring you back, we'll take a quick look at it, and then we'll switch over to number 2, and we'll check these 2 areas we just did, and then we'll bust out the whole thing and get it out in the sun and take a look at it. Okay, all done with the first step. It's looking really good. Now I did go back and sand a few areas I wasn't happy with, and then repolished them. They kind of showed up more when everything got shiny. So, that's something you have to do. You have to go back, oh, I don't like that, go back, sand it, and then polish it. Otherwise, later you're just going to regret not spending the extra 5 minutes. So take your time, take breaks, and come back to it, and then you'll be a little more recharged and willing to get after those spots that you weren't quite happy with. So we're going to move over to the number 2 step, and we're going to be using the Perfect EX system number 2 and the blue foam pad, and we'll start right where we had those lights shining through to see if we can get that super shiny. Okay, take note of how distinctive you see the lights, and then let's see if it gets any better here. Okay, see how she turned out here. All right, I see more definition. It's the lines are a little bit cleaner. I'll try to zoom in more, but that's all the camera will do right there. But it's looking really good, so I'm really happy about that. Super smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the hood, and then we'll take a quick look while it's inside the shop, and then we'll roll it out in the sun and take a final look at it and wrap this thing up. Okay guys, all done. It's looking really good, super smooth. I'm really happy the way it came out. Had to go back and forth a few times to get it to look this good, but it's worth the effort. So this is our area where we had those nubbins, remember that? And the bug was right here somewhere, I'm not sure where. Try to get an angle on it, but he's gone. So let's roll this thing outside and see how it looks like in the sunlight. Okay guys, all done. It's looking really good. All the major work on this hood is completed. We have some emblems to put on in the center strip, but that'll come in a little bit. But all in all, this hood is done and looking really good. Here's that blue ribbon metallic. Some of you guys have asked me about it. It's off a Toyota Tacoma, named Blue Ribbon Metallic. Not really difficult to spray, so don't be afraid of it if you want to spray this color. It's not difficult, so you should be able to do it. Even a first-time painter, I think, can handle it, no problem. But it's looking really, really good. It came out really straight, not perfect by any means. I mean, there's some waves here and there, but I think it looks great. And our big old speaker dent's gone, and that hood flitter kit really helped this hood out and didn't distort it at all. See if I can get an angle on there for you. So it's going to look really good. And this is where Darren's going to be sitting right here, looking over this nice, smooth, flat, beautiful hood. Super smooth. I love it. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up this video. Ran a little bit longer than I wanted to, but you know how it is. When you want to do a good job, you got to put the time in. So the hood came out beautifully. I can't wait to get moving forward. We got to polish the center strip, which is going to be interesting. But all in all, I think the hood came out great. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Keep those comments coming. And hey guys, I haven't got any update pictures on all your projects, so let's get out in that garage, shop, driveway, street, whatever you got to do. Let's get some work done and get those things moving forward so we can enjoy our rides instead of just working on them all the time. I'll see you on the next one.